Hey everybody, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, it's theclinicaltrialsguru.com. If you're brand new, welcome, thank you. Make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss out on announcements, giveaways, all that kind of stuff. If you have a question, you can email me, Dan at theclinicaltrialsguru.com, or you can call or text me like this person did, 949-415-6256. So this one, they have a couple basic questions about some regulatory issues slash topics slash compliance topics. They want me to talk about the 1572, the Irb approval process, the informed consent form, etc. So each of these topics I can actually spend like a half an hour to an hour on. I'm just going to give you like a brief overview of the regulatory process from startup, like from study startup. So, and I'm going to emphasize the 1572 form, the Irb approval process, and the other one you asked me about, the informed consent form. Okay, so the way this works for most research sites out there is that they use what's called a central Irb. So what a central Irb is if you're not under the jurisdiction of a local Irb, like many hospitals and academic institutions and certain non-profit organizations are under the jurisdiction of local Irbs, they don't apply to this video. Okay, this is only for central Irbs, which is the majority of private industry research companies out there. Central Irb, a sponsor will appoint an Irb to be the Irb for your site as well as their other sites in the study. So to go through the Irb approval process, what they need, each Irb is different. They have different forms for a new investigator or just a new study, all right, to register the study at your site. They all have different forms, but they're all essentially the same. They want to know who the PI is, how many studies they have going on, how much support staff they have. They want to make sure that the PI is not overworked. They want to know whether the study staff can handle a study. And the Irb is always looking at things from the perspective of patient safety. Okay, so they want to make sure that the PI has enough oversight and can reasonably look after the safety and well-being of his or her study participants, and that they have delegated the right people to their study. Like they have adequate coordinators, sub-investigators, and coordinators and sub-Is who are also adequately trained, and not just with how much research experience they have, but adequately trained on GCP and NIH and all that kind of stuff. They also look for any regulatory agencies that have audited. So they always ask if FDA has audited or Irb has audited or a sponsor has audited your research clinic. Another thing they look for is how many subjects from all the clinical trials that this PI is participating in at the moment, how many subjects are actively enrolled in those studies. So a typical Irb approval form for a research site is anywhere from 12 to 17 pages or so, and they ask what the general consensus of research is in your community. I just filled one out for a client this morning, so a lot of these things are fresh in my mind. And then after the Irb approval form is given to the Irb, they also want the 1572. And the 1572 is the PI's, basically their promise, their signed promise to the FDA that they're going to have oversight and adhere to GCP and adhere to the protocol. So on the 1572, those are filed with the FDA. They're also filed with the sponsor, and they're filed in at the research site's reg binder, regulatory binder, right? It's arguably the most important form in clinical research, at least from a regulatory perspective. So you have the investigator's name, the address, the name of the clinic, the name of the Irb, all the sub-investigators, the protocol title, who the sponsor is. You have everything on there. Any other facilities where the study might be conducted, like if you're going to be doing MRIs, you need to include that facility. If you're going to be sending patients to get blood drawn at outside of your clinic, you need to include those facilities. The lab company who processes the lab, so even if it's a central lab from the sponsor or CRO, they need to go on the 1572. So that's what the 1572 is, and you don't need to change it unless a facility changes addresses, or you add a facility, or you add a sub-investigator, or if a sub-investigator leaves, that's when you update a 1572. So typically during a study, like a 2 or 3 year study, you may go through 3 or 4 different 1572s. Okay, that's not at all unusual. Last one for the purposes of this video is the informed consent. So I've done videos just on this topic. What I'm going to talk to you about informed consent is not it's important for patients, okay, because I've done videos on that before. I've written books on that before. Of course, the informed consent form is not just a form, it's a process that is the most important thing for patients. It's what informs them of the risks, their rights, the benefits, everything that's known about the drug and the potential side effects, or as well as the unknown side effects. And it's a process, because as we learn more about the study, we update the informed consents. For this video, the purpose of getting your site started up, right, for a new study, if you're working with a central IRB, back to the beginning of this video, they will send you an informed consent template. And in fact, a lot of the questions they ask you during your IRB approval form submission is how much do you compensate patients? Will you reimburse them for driving in or parking? How often do you reimburse patients? What's the amount? And oftentimes you can fax them or email them or scan them a copy of the budget for the schedule of assessments, where it shows that the patient gets typically $50 for every visit, at least for outpatient visits. So when the central IRB, and this is why it's important, if you can use a central IRB, use a central IRB. Don't use a local IRB if you have a choice. Always use a central IRB. That should probably be a t-shirt that I make, right? It's that important. Always use a central IRB if you have a choice. When you submit your IRB approval form, or your initial IRB submission form for your site, they're going to pre-populate your informed consent form, but then they're going to give you a template, and you have to go in there and make sure everything's correct, make sure that the PI's name and address and the clinic name and the 24-hour emergency line, this is important, and we've had monitors actually call that 24-hour line like at random times of the night, just to make sure it's a working number and that someone's answering. Because if a patient has an emergency and for some reason they don't call 911, or they do call 911 but they still want to talk to someone from the clinic, you have to have a 24-hour emergency number on there. And they don't usually check the number, but we've had monitors doing that, and that's become more and more increasingly common. So that's my answers to your question / topic idea. Thank you very much for watching. Email me more questions, dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com, or call or text 949-415-6256. Thanks. Take care.